Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. Thank you for joining us for our session today, Shaping the New Normal, Crisis-Resilient Tourism via Socially Inclusive Water, Sanitation and Hygiene, or WASH. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Indigenous owners of the land that I'm joining from in Brisbane, Australia, the Jagera and the Turrbal people and their leaders past, present and emerging. Our team joins you today from Australia, Indonesia, Fiji and Singapore. And you can see on the slide there, the partners that we have involved in our session today across research, water stewardship and tourism. And we'd like to acknowledge the support of the Australian Aid Program. We'll start with an introduction. Then we're going to take you on a virtual field visit to Lombok in Indonesia. I know we're all missing travel. And then we'll introduce these guidelines that our project team has been developing on inclusive WASH in the workplace for tourism. We'll then have a panel session, which is a chance for you to also ask questions at that time. So should you have questions as we go along, please feel to put them in the chat at any time. We also invite you to fill in a poll, and you'll see in that poll part of the Pathable platform that there's a question there for you to reflect on, and by the end, have a few answers if you like. The question is, in one word, what is needed to solve WASH challenges in tourism destinations? So without further ado, we'll do the introduction. So as you all know, tourism is ordinarily a major contributor to economic growth and estimated to be around 10% of global GDP if you include travel, which is around $9.2 trillion, that's how it's estimated. In Indonesia, which this graph represents, you can see it's a growing area of the economy with growing number of visitors every year until, of course, the recent COVID-19 pandemic impacted travel and our ability to enjoy tourism. However, on the optimistic side, tourism is very keen to build back better, and water, sanitation, hygiene, particularly hygiene, is an important part of that. What do we already know about tourism? Well, we know it's a major user of water. So in Indonesia, for example, a tourist on average would use 700 litres per person per day, whereas in the communities surrounding, they may use as little as 100 litres per person per day. Also, tourism is a major source of waste, not only solid waste, but also wastewater. Also, tourism is a major employer of women, so there are a whole range of issues around economic empowerment for women and also the effects of the downturns on women. Tourism is also, like every sector, affected by climate change, and we'll hear more about that soon. So the research project that our team has been involved in is particularly interested in how can tourism contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly Sustainable Development Goal 5, gender equality, and Sustainable Development Goal 6, clean water, sanitation and safe clean water, sanitation, hygiene for all. Here you can see an example of corporate social responsibility at work, a beach cleanup in Indonesia. So our interest is how we can expand on this idea into other areas like social inclusion and WASH. And the key stakeholders involved in this are tourism sector, of course, but also government, and that's hotel departments, water supply authorities, and a lot of different sectors are involved from government side. Also, of course, the communities. And today we'll hear from perspectives from those working across all three of those stakeholder groups, and we'll be hearing from research organisations, think tanks and associations. Now we'll go on a virtual field visit to Lombok.
Kawasan pariwisata Mandalika terletak di Kabupaten Lombok Tengah, Provinsi Nusa Tenggara Barat. Bentang alamnya yang indah, berpadu dengan event budaya dan tradisi Sasak, menjadi daya tarik tersendiri bagi wisatawan domestik maupun wisatawan asing. Potensi wisata yang besar mendorong pemerintah pusat menetapkan kawasan Mandalika sebagai kawasan ekonomi khusus dan memasukkan kawasan ini sebagai salah satu dari 10 destinasi wisata prioritas nasional.
Nilai investasi pengembangan Mandalika cukup fantastis, mencapai 2,2 triliun rupiah. Salah satu investasi yang sangat besar adalah pembangunan sirkuit MotoGP yang pasti memiliki daya tarik kuat bagi wisatawan.
Salah satu isu penting dalam pengembangan kawasan wisata adalah potensi bencana. Kawasan Mandalika berada di wilayah dengan ancaman gempa dan banjir. Awal tahun 2021 lalu, terjadi banjir yang mengenangi 17 dusun di wilayah desa-desa penyangga. Mandalika juga mengalami kekeringan setiap tahunnya yang berdampak pada keterbatasan air. Pandemi COVID-19 juga menjadi bencana yang berdampak sangat besar di sektor pariwisata. Lokasi wisata menjadi sepi, banyak pelaku bisnis di sektor ini merugi. Untuk bangkit kembali, kebiasaan baru terkait air bersih, sanitasi, dan hygiene atau wash perlu ditingkatkan. Di desa-desa sekitar kawasan wisata, isu air dan sanitasi masih menjadi masalah serius.
Di Desa Merta ini beberapa dusun yang masih kesulitan air, sehingga warga kami sebagian yang masih buang air sembarangan, belum mempunyai kesadaran masalah hidup sehat.
Perilaku hygiene di dalam hotel dan masyarakat sangatlah penting karena akan membuat wisatawan yang datang ke Lombok ini akan merasa lebih aman, nyaman saat berinteraksi dengan masyarakat lokal.
Kita sebagai masyarakat di sini akan terus meningkatkan kebersihan. Soalnya kalau kita tidak bersih, maka kesan kita di wisatawan luar negeri dan dalam negeri akan menjadi jelek.
Fasilitas sanitasi baik di masyarakat maupun di kawasan wisata harus mengakomodir kebutuhan kelompok difabel dan dilengkapi dengan sarana kebersihan menstruasi.
Teman-teman kami penyandang disabilitas sangat berharap sekali ada aksesibilitas, karena selama ini ketika kami berkunjung ke kawasan pariwisata tidak ada kami menemukan toilet yang akses, tidak ada boarding block untuk teman-teman netra.
Saat ini pembangunan sarana air bersih dan jamban yang mengakomodir kepentingan kelompok difabel dan perempuan perlu ditingkatkan melalui kolaborasi dengan berbagai pihak.
International Water Center Griffith University Universitas Udayana dan Institut Teknologi Bandung bekerja sama dengan berbagai pihak di sektor air bersih, penyihatan lingkungan, dan sektor pariwisata di Kuta Mandalika berupaya mengkaji persoalan WOS dengan pendekatan gender, disability, and social inclusion.
Dalam proyek ini kami bekerja sama dengan pemerintah daerah, pelaku wisata, masyarakat, dan LSM untuk mengidentifikasi masalah dan merancang bersama panduan WOS yang inklusif di tempat kerja, di kawasan wisata, dan di masyarakat. Nah, yang terpenting adalah keterlibatan semua stakeholder ini mulai dari proses perencanaan, termasuk dengan jaringan hotel besar, sehingga dapat mempercepat tercapainya WOS yang inklusif di daerah-daerah pariwisata.
Kedepan kami akan meningkatkan kolaborasi dengan pemerintah dan masyarakat sekitar untuk menyelesaikan isu-isu ini di Mandalika.
Kebersihan dan sanitasi itu adalah untuk kesehatan masyarakat. Hingga kami berharap difabel ini penting untuk kita memberikan bantuan kepada mereka.
Para pihak dari sektor pariwisata dan sektor AMPL mendiskusikan untuk menyelesaikan isu catching WOS sehingga dapat mengakomodasi kebutuhan semua kelompok masyarakat.
Now I invite Dr. Andrinya Nastiti to introduce the Inclusive Wash at Work guidelines. Thank you, Asti.
Thank you, Bronwyn. So hello, everyone. I would like to introduce the 3 guidelines of Jetsi Wash at Work in tourism destinations. Next, please. In Indonesia, tourism is a key driver of economic development, employs a significant number of women, and is a substantial consumer of water and source of solid waste and wastewater. A practical and sustainable inclusive Wash at Work program will deliver many benefits at multiple scales. So, as you can see on the screen, there are three stakeholders: tourism operators, community, and the government. Next, please. We have developed three guidelines for each of the stakeholders I was mentioning before: community with NGOs, hotel, tourism operators, and government. The three guidelines document highlight the links between the responsibilities of governments, employers, workers, and local communities, and promote an engaged and collaborative framework for action. Next, please. The focal point of the guidelines is JETSI WASH, but what is JETSI WASH? JETSI stands for Gender Equity, Disability, and Social Inclusion. JETSI WASH ensures that vulnerable groups such as women, people with disabilities, migrant workers, elderly, and children have access to water, sanitation, and hygiene. Next, please. Inside the guidelines, there are components and indicators which covers various topics such as policy, awareness, access, environment, and collaborations. The guidelines outline 3 levels for inclusive WASH and how these levels can be reached and how inclusive policies can be integrated. The guidelines also highlight the continuous improvement aspect so people can start from anywhere and progress from there. Thank you, Bronwyn.
Thank you very much, Asti. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce the panel. So please make yourselves visible. Today we have a panel. We include Dr. Nimade Utami Dwipayanti, who featured on the video earlier and is at the Department of Public Health and Preventative Medicine at Udayana University in Indonesia. Also, Mr. Jean Hellier, who's the General Manager of Indigo Hotel in Bali, Seminyak, and also the Chairman of the Bali Hotel Association. We also have Ms. Basha Jantalski, who's the Director of the Alliance for Water Stewardship in Indonesia. So I'll give them a round of applause for joining us today. Thank you very much. As we've already heard so far, the COVID-19 pandemic and climate change both pose as a tandem crisis that pose challenges to health, economy, environment, and society. However, these crises are joined on top of an existing crisis in water, sanitation, and hygiene. So in Indonesia, 30 million people lack access to improved water and 70 million lack improved sanitation. So my first question is, with so many crises to face, what use are guidelines and standards, and how can they help when it comes to inclusive WASH and the tourism sector? Maybe we could start with you, Yanti.
Thank you, Bronwyn. So firstly, I would like to apologize if I have a bad connection with my internet. With the inclusive WASH at Work guidelines, we try to highlight the importance that WASH access to be socially inclusive. So it's not only in a hotel setting as a workplace, but also in communities. So with this inclusive WASH access, we want to reduce the risk of disease spread in the community and thus can increase guest trust in the destination. The WASH at Work guidelines can complement a standard like the AWS standards in the topic of WASH for the tourism sector. So in the guidelines, it actually promotes.
We can't see your video at the moment. I don't know if you've turned it on.
Oh, sorry. I'm really sorry. I forgot about it. All right. So yeah, let me
continue. Please continue.
So So these guidelines, it promotes more collaboration and participatory approach in addressing inclusive WASH, and it actually can help to raise awareness and better involve various community groups, such as the disability groups involving more tourism actors in development process. It can also help to increase ownership by the government.
Great, thanks. And Basha, you know the water stewardship standard very well. How do you think that can help?
So there's indeed a difference for those who know between a standard and a guideline that we're talking about today. But actually both, of course, come about the fact that, as it was highlighted in the beginning, we see these growing water challenges. So there's also, of course, a growing need on how to respond to these and really to ensure how we can have more resilient and economic sustainable development. So through the years, that has really given a rise to different kind of sector and company specific standards, evaluation tools and guidelines like these. So indeed, your question and responding from the Alliance for Water Stewardship, this really came about because of that growing need globally. And the Alliance for Water Stewardship really is the global framework for water users to ensure credible claims on water and thus also WASH can be made. That is because the AWS standard is supported also by an assurance system. So if we talk about indeed the guideline that was presented today, the AWS standard itself also comes with the guidance documents. And as I already said, WASH is one of the 5 outcomes that the standard works towards. So there's also already particular guidance for companies, for sites that are implementing the standard on the topic of WASH. However, it would be really interesting to, of course, explore what we can learn from this guideline and how we can strengthen maybe already existing guidance that we have in place. This could really help implementers, and I'm happy to see that an implementer like from Intercontinental's Hotels Group is already here. They are a member of the Alliance for Water Stewardship, and they've worked indeed with the AWS standard on multiple sites and doing indeed pilot projects there. They ultimately would be the ones that are implementing the standard, but also a guidance like this. And it would be really interesting to see how it would work for them.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And maybe Jean, it would be really interesting to hear your experience using the water standard, water stewardship standard in Bali. If you could give us some examples of how what you've learned from that at the Indigo Hotel.
Thank you, Bonwin. Well, there are a few common challenges most hotels are facing in the island. Freshwater availability first, as the tourism and groundwater demand grow, the saltwater intrusion is becoming a major risk of threatening freshwater availability in the coastal area. The second point is the regular flooding from the community and municipal drains, which can cause damage to materials and buildings, as well as inconvenience for hotel guests if water becomes polluted with wastewater, for example. So by partnering with Alliance for Water Stewardship, we gain first a better understanding of our water basin catchment. I didn't know about it before. Challenges we are facing and key actions we should focus on to improve that and their value add to the environment and our community. For example, recycling wastewater to reduce load on the municipal system was one of the great things that we have accomplished. Also, we were able to collaborate with different organizations and government institutions to discuss issues and explore solutions to protect our water basin. So the immediate result of the agreement has been to extend the water supply to the municipal supply network as an additional source of water supply. And the second part was to construct an underground drain for wastewater from the compound to protect freshwater sources.
Thanks, John. It's great to hear those practical examples about how the hotel is managing wastewater to protect the environment and also supplying to the community. It's an excellent example. So Yanti, I understand the research from Lombok. It's a smaller island, it's a developing destination. What do you think, why should new hotels and new developing businesses invest or consider investing in inclusive WASH at work?
Thank you, Bronwyn. So it's good to hear a good example from a big hotel in Bali of so many action has been taken, but we need to also to consider smaller businesses. These new and smaller hotels, they usually have more interactions between tourist staff and their surrounding communities through many social activities in communities. But usually they're with a very limited awareness and capacity. So it is important to support these small businesses to implement inclusive WASH to make sure the safety and hygiene for all, not only in their premises, but also in surrounding communities. So if these small businesses or tourism operators start design the facilities to be inclusive from the beginning, it's actually a safer investment because they don't need to improve their facilities to be accessible later. And if they also support the communities from the beginning when they start the business, they will gain more social support, will also create cleaner and safer destinations. So it helps to create more sustainable tourism in that emerging destination. Thank you, Brian.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's one thing to have a set of guidelines and to have a standard, but what kind of actions and collaborations are needed with government and the private sector for these, outcomes that we hope for: better health, better wash access, healthier environments? Maybe we could start with you, Jean.
Well, thank you. What has been clear for us through our pilot project with Alliance for Water Stewardship in diverse geographies has been that IG already implements measures on site to reduce negative impacts on water through the use of our online sustainability program, which called IG Green Engage. For example, hotels saved water by using low flow fixtures and fittings, guest education on water conservation efforts, and grey water recycling and leak detection systems. However, it's indeed important to state that hotels are just one actor in a river basin, and to truly improve access to wash, it's really imperative to collaborate across the public and private sector. For example, to coordinate technical interventions to conserve water, to collaborate on wash education and awareness for hotel colleagues and the wider community, also to collective actions to raise awareness and lobby for wider change and intervention support. Hotels are at the end at the heart of the communities and are well placed to help facilitate conversation and collective action on a topic like wash. In Bali, for example, Hotel Indigo is part of the Bali Hotel Associations, which provide a good platform for engagement and collaboration with other sector platforms and the governments.
Great, thank you. Maybe you'd like to add to that, Yanti.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we're having a bad connection. Maybe I'll go to you first, Basha.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I want to talk. Okay, Yanti.
Citizen guidelines.
Sorry, Auntie, the connection's not very good. I think we'll need to go to Basha. Go ahead, Basha.
Okay. Yes, let me try again. So interesting thing, I think, as we just heard as well from Jean, the assessment that was being done in the hotel in Bali, but also in other geographies, and they use the AWS standard as that actually to really understand their challenges and their risk, and then see what can they do, what are they already implementing, and what then should they be implementing additionally to actually strengthen the impacts, both at the site and within the larger catchment. So the standard really provides a framework for a site on how you should implement and what you should implement, but it also indeed, when you talk about impacts, it provides a framework, to evaluate and also report on indicators related to wash. So it's a very useful framework and standard to work on these impacts. Of course, the most important step in that, the first one is understanding. The second one is real implementation. It's often easier said than done. But it really comes down to acknowledging the importance of acting on a topic like wash, but also realizing for a business like in hospitality, what is a benefit for me to work on this, not only on my site, so not only for my employees, but also in the larger catchments, so communities surrounding the hotels, for example.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's so interesting to see that so many different sectors are already moving on this, and they are certifying sites on the AWS standard. So, that actual benefit and those actual impacts are definitely already there. As Alliance for Water Stewardship, we really would like to see that indeed the hospitality sector also steps up and becomes a key player in this field.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Basha. We're nearly out of time. We're also very keen for people to keep applying the Alliance for Water Stewardship standard and also think about gender, disability and social inclusion as they do so. So with our final wrap up, we will now just go to our call to action. So what we would like to finish with is our call to action for our key stakeholder groups. So we call on the tourism sector to improve their own operations within their site, as we've heard, the Indigo Hotel has done so effectively. And we also increase collaboration with the water sector to improve operations. Provide collaboration. We want government to provide collaborative planning frameworks so that all stakeholders have a say. And that includes women and girls, people with a disability, and our guidelines help to show how that can be done. And then finally, action 3, we would like to see the uptake and use of these guidelines that exist. So these ones, the Inclusive Wash at Work guidelines, which you can download, they're in the files section of the Pathable where you can download them right away now. They're in Bahasa, Indonesia, and also in English. So very happy that we can share those. And of course, the Alliance for Water Stewardship Standard, which is also there in that file section. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're very pleased that you were able to join us. Thank you very much to our panel, Jean, Yanti, and Basha. And also, we really hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. If you've enjoyed this session, please tell your friends. There is another repeat session on Thursday. So enjoy the conference and the rest of World Water Week. Thank you.